Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is Wednesday, and that means it's News Day. So, we're going to go around the horn and share with everyone our best news pieces for today. I am joined by Andy, Brian, and Beth, and I am Junmi. And let's get into the news. If you're watching us, listening us in the chat, thank you so much. And of course, you can always find out more and join our newsletter by going to thedailyishow.com. All right, news-wise, Andy, what exciting news do you have for us for today? Oh,
You're muted.
I'm muted.
Well, while
Well,
Andy's getting
yeah.
that, I'll give you one
Brian, why
real.
don't you share with
I'll
us
give I'll give you a
your
quick one
spin?
because this came up yesterday in Ethan Mollick's post that he did on LinkedIn, and I commented on it, and then I had people commenting on my comment, and he was just talking about Google. No surprise to us, right? Because we talked about this 100 times. Partnering with a company that was going to be doing smaller nuclear reactors. I've forgotten the name of the company. It starts with an R, Raycor or something like that. That part's not as important. I think we've seen this before, where we've seen companies and the people in the comments. I felt like maybe were just maybe a little less informed, and so it's worth bringing up because I do think for our general audience, for people listening, that when we say, "Oh, these big tech companies, these big AI companies are reinvesting or are newly investing in nuclear power," that we don't always mean 3 Mile Island. We don't always mean the traditional big stacks that have water vapor coming out of the top of them. Lots of people used to think that was smoke. It's not smoke. It just looks like that, right? So not that I'm like super pro, everything's gonna be hunky dory. And I was saying this in the comments, despite the fact that they came after me anyway. And I was like, hey, I'm not saying I'm an expert here, but people should do their due diligence when they see, or I feel like they should, when they see a news article or like what Ethan Mollick was pointing about, saying, hey, Google is now working with this company and they're in talks to build smaller nuclear reactors. Now, what does small mean? Well, smaller than the giant stacks that we're used to from the 70s and before. Also, technology has come a very, very long way. So rightfully so, somebody in there was like, her first comment was, and what are we going to do about all the nuclear waste? It's going to destroy us, right? It was a very doom and gloom type thing. I'm not an expert there. Can't answer that. I told her that. She asked me, and I was like, "You're asking the wrong person." I'm simply saying there's more to research here. If you believe that it is a 20-year build out to some massive nuclear power plant that's going to sit on the coast somewhere, and that's what Google's saying. Like, no, we should do our due diligence. We should do our research and look at the company that they're partnering with. Have they built anything? Is anything currently in there? In that particular case, it does not look like it. So, in terms of a nuclear race, if you will, for the big AI tech companies, who's sort of really leading the charge? I would still say it's probably Microsoft, based on the fact that they already have partnerships with 3 Mile Island, not both stacks. One of them did not do well. We know that, but the other stack can be brought back online within the next couple of years. But also, we've seen Bill Gates both fund, and although they say it doesn't have anything to do with Microsoft, I mean, come on, it's Bill Gates. So there's some partnership in there probably, but officially they're saying there's no connection. But he's also been talking about it. And these look more like Connex, containers, 40-foot shipping containers, or perhaps they're, a half of a city block big, which is big, but not as big as we might be thinking. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I think anytime we talk about, or anytime anybody sees anything about nuclear and AI, which is going to come up again and again and again, not only on this show, but just in the news. Always just pause and think, and this is for our listeners in general, just pause and think, okay, hold on. What kind of nuclear power are they talking about? What type of size is it? Is this a technology that's already hit the market and they're partnering with it? What are the safety standards? It's just interesting to dig into what these different companies, because there's so many of them out there. But it's easy. It's easy, right? To see Google's getting a nuclear power. You're like, oh, well, there we go. There we go. They're going to control the nuclear power in the country. And I'm like, all right, pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. Go get educated. Go read. Go dig a little bit more than a one-liner. and go figure out what this means, because it's going to be so important for the rest of us in terms of what we can potentially do in the future with AI. Because I'm in the camp of it ain't going to happen if they don't figure out how to get nuclear power as part of the solution.
The
Yeah.
I just wanted
I
to
think there's
add
enough
that.
there. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to add that Microsoft did sign a deal with a different Sam Altman-backed startup for 50 megawatts of fusion power. So it isn't all nuclear power.
Right.
I think I would be, explore all sorts of power. I would love it if they came up to Canada, especially here in Calgary, where we have the highest number of days of sunlight, and build a couple of data centers powered by solar power or wind
Sure.
power up here.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Indeed. Yeah.
So a little promo for our city, or even go to Utah or wherever there is a lot of sun, and use different kinds of power. So it isn't, you don't have to be nuclear entirely, but
No.
you need all sorts of power. They need power.
Exactly.
They need a lot of
Right.
power. So
Clean power is what
Clean
we're saying,
power.
right? I mean,
Yeah,
building more, well, listen, we won't do that on the new show. I know you want to get back to Jimmy, because it gets into the whole thing like, well, is an EV cleaner than an ICE car? Well, okay, it depends on how far down the path you want to go. I own 2 EVs. So like, I'll put myself in that position. Am I driving a better car for the environment? How far do you want to dig? Where do you want to go to how the batteries are created, the mines and things like that? I mean, everybody's got a path. Everybody's got a, sort of an agenda of what they want the ultimate outcome to be. And it's a little bit more muddy than that. So anyway,
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Just a quick comment. We spent a lot of time on this, so I want to clarify a couple things. Small modular reactors are in operational mode. They are carbon free. They're not generating carbon as
Correct.
most other sources of energy do, other than the renewable sources. And the other, I just want to say, it's Kairos Power is the name of the startup.
Thank you.
That's creating small modular reactors, which is a new model of nuclear fission generation. And fusion is also nuclear. The thing that Sam Altman's investing in is a long shot, in the sense that no one's ever yet been able to create a controlled fusion reaction.
Yeah.
So that's out there in the future a bit more.
For sure. And by the way, I hope it goes towards fusion, right? I mean, I hope that's what we're doing. It is ultimately going to be a better source. Right now, though, although they've had them, they're not sustained, and they often take more power to produce than the output. And so it's sort of a backwards mathematical model at the moment. But God knows, we certainly have places like CERN and everywhere else that are certainly working on this. And
That's true. And they definitely have had experiments where they were able to produce more than what they put in. But like Andy said, it's still in development. But I do want to get back to the news. So Beth, tell me, what's your top news story?
All right. My top news story is coming out of the Adobe event that's happening. That's been happening earlier this week. They have unveiled a Firefly video model. Their event is called Max. The video model works in Premiere Pro. Right, so it's a generative extend from your actual video. It's all actual video from the video that you took in a traditional way or made in a traditional way, and you can extend it in specifically in Premiere Pro. It is in limited public beta, and the reason that this is significant is this is like the same reason that it's significant when Google Workspace and 365 get the AI embedded within it, because it is delivering AI capabilities at the source of where people are interacting with it, that they don't have to go out and try something new or find it. This is right there. I don't expect it to be super good at this point, because that tends not to be what's happening, but these technologies are getting closer and closer to just being ubiquitous, in terms of where people are, that like they're coming to you, right? They're coming to, I mean, our audience, you're already in them, but they're coming to your mother-in-law, right? So
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up that story, because that was definitely going to be one that I was going to bring up. what seems to be most important to me out of this, or what got me excited, is that generative fill, right? 5 seconds of generative fill. So what this means on a production is, let's say you needed an extra shot, or one of your shots didn't quite come out the way that you wanted. Well, what this generative fill can do is fill in that gap, right? So normally a sequence will take, could possibly be many camera angles and things like that. For whatever reason, you didn't get it, or it wasn't planned, or for, there was damage, whatever. But with this now, and one of the examples they showed was somebody walking around a car, right, to take a look at something. So they had when they're behind the car and part of where where they should be on the side, but they didn't get them to where, or they got them to where they were, but it wasn't a smooth transition. So they filled between point A and C with generative fill. And so to me, that's huge, because if you had to reshoot, you have to reorganize that whole thing. You got to get everybody back out there, or if you can't afford the time or the cost for doing that, you would have to do some sort of cover up, right? You have to do some sort of cutaway or put in some other element or something like this. But these little, what might be considered just little jumps, you're not creating entire videos like people are showing on Runway or Pika or anything like that. But like you said, this is a great fix and great helper for those who are doing this on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So yes, thank you, Beth. All right, so Carl joined us. Thank you, Carl. What do you got at the top of your list there for news?
Well, it's kind of related to the power aspect. So, a team of engineers at an AI inference tech company called BitEnergy AI. So they reported a method to reduce energy needs of all AI applications by 95%. So maybe you don't need all that nuclear power. So they published a paper describing the technique, and I'm trying to distill this into. So they claim that they found a way to drastically reduce the amount of compute, and the technique is basic. The new technique is basic. Instead of using complex floating point multiplication, the method uses integer addition. Apps using the floating point multiplication to handle extremely large or small numbers, allowing applications to carry out calculations using them with extreme precision. It is also the most energy intensive part of AI number crunching. So the researchers call their new method linear complexity multiplication. It works by approximating FPM using integer addition. They claim that testing thus far has shown that the new approach reduces electricity demand by 95%. The one drawback is that it requires different hardware than that current AI applications are used in. But the research team also notes that the new type of hardware has also been designed, built, and tested. How such hardware would be licensed, however, is unclear. Currently, GPU maker NVIDIA dominates that AI hardware market. The market. How they respond to this new technology could have a major impact on the pace which it is adopted if the company's claims are verified. So I think this is a very interesting point, because if you can reduce AI compute and energy demands by 95%, that's a pretty bold claim. So that is my news. I thought that's what
Yeah,
perfectly what we talked about.
it does beg the question. A couple of things for me is, um, did they say they got the equivalence of compute from the new process, and then
Uh,
it would be that power, less power
it,
generation or
I just
requirement?
read they claim that testing thus far has shown that the new approach reduces electricity demand by
Okay.
95%.
Yeah,
Okay.
we spoke briefly about this L-Mul technique. It's a mathematical improvement,
Mhm.
and it eliminates these massive recursive floating point calculations that the transformer model uses. So it's really much more efficient, but it's not in alignment with the architecture that's out there in data centers. So it's theoretical in that sense, although it could be mounted on a smaller scale. It would take a major shift in the marketplace to adopt that methodology because of the hardware requirements that are different from GPUs.
Right, but and then that's my second question. When they said it's already been designed, the hardware's already been designed to be able to do it, is
Yeah,
it
it can be
an
done on a
additional or
simpler
new design,
hardware.
or are they using pre-existing hardware?
It can actually be done on ASICs, right? Because it's simpler math.
Oh,
It's much
oh, that
cheaper and much faster. So,
right.
but somebody would have to start to build out that,
Mhm.
and I'm hopeful because Carl's right. If you can get a 95% reduction in the energy demands related to inference, then you're really changing the game. So hopefully this ends up being a major initiative for some investment that has to be made in that particular campaign towards efficiency.
That's our
Okay,
first
okay,
$1
yeah.
trillion idea. That's
What
our $1 trillion idea.
well,
Take that.
it's really interesting that it can be run on ASIC hardware
Yeah.
because ASIC is the way to go for those single type of compute. That's what they're there for. Is they have their particular instruction set, and then they run it at high efficiency and high speed. And those manufacturers do exist already. So while it would probably still take time to spin up, get the plants going and stuff like that, that uh, that supply chain currently exists. So that might be something that might actually have some legs. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see what they'll see in maybe in 12 months. Andy, do you have another story you could share with us?
Yes, I do. I want to bring your attention to a new company that I had not heard of at all that came into the news this week by jumping to the head of the leaderboards for small 7 billion scale models out there. And the company is called Zifra. Zifra is in Palo Alto, California, and they call themselves a full stack AGI company. And what they mean by full stack is they're developing not only the data for training AGI, but they've also built this new kind of model. It's a hybrid state space model. It's not a transformer pure and simple. It combines transformer architectures with state space models. Just a sidebar here, state space model architecture provides performance advantages even when all the benchmarks aren't focused on the time series problems that state space is particularly adept at. So it can handle complex dynamic systems and capture patterns and relationships in data in a way that transformers don't natively do. So this company has combined, with other tricks of the trade, has combined state space models with transformers, and they've launched Zamba 2 7 billion. And that's this new system that's trained also on their internal data, the Zida 2 data set, which is a many, many trillions large data set that does this. And what they're doing, why this is important, is what they're building smaller, more efficient, and some of them open source models that can run on a variety of devices all the way to your phone in their smallest versions. They have a Zamba mini model at 2.7 billion that'll run on your phone. And many of those small models don't perform as well as the large models. Well, this one has beat out Gemma. It's beat out Llama, the small open source models, and the Mistral models. So Zifra's Zamba series is very important. So where does this get applied? In personal AI, so you can run it locally on your device. Edge intelligence, very important. So applications like an Internet of Things devices that need to have AI, decision making built into them. Smart home systems and wearable technology can all take advantage of these major advances that Zifra has put there, and it's all natively multimodal. That whole
Ooh,
training data set is multimodal.
I like
So
that.
really important. They're making AI more accessible, more efficient, and more personalized. and addressing some of the limitations of the centralized models that require on-network connectivity in order to actually produce their inference.
I like that. You totally had me at on device or your on premise models there. That's always that's a big check mark for me. Before we get on to the next story, and I know Brian's got a really big one, deep dive. I just wanted to take a second to say, hey, if you haven't if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, please do so. Lots of great stuff in there. It's been developing over time, and I think we got really a really good newsletter. So check that out if you aren't already subscribed. Now, Brian, go ahead. Tell us, quantum computing, are we there?
Well, listen, this is ripped from the chat. You know, they start talking about that show, whatever that show is that does rip from the headlines and Law and Order or whatever it is. Ripped straight from the chat of YouTube. Cisco, one of our longtime followers and DOS crew here, brought this story up, and I didn't know anything about it, so I had to go do some research. He said, guys, another story that hit this morning, and he's right, it was today, relates the quantum computing breakthrough in cryptography. Not sure of the link between quantum and AI, but it's an interesting story. So while Andy and everybody else was speaking, and I did miss the trillion dollar idea because I was reading by the screen, but we'll get back to that. I'll find out what that is and how we're all going to make trillions of dollars. But what the story was new breakthrough in quantum computing development, hybrid quantum error correction technology. Well, I read it and then I thought, well, I got to have a better way of talking about this on the show. So Perplexity to the rescue, using my Chrome plugin. And I'm not ashamed to say, I say, keep this at a 5th grade level, please. So now let's all learn together. Quantum computing is a special type of computing that uses tiny particles called qubits to produce information. However, qubits make mistakes, just like how we make mistakes when doing math. See, this is a 5th grade level. To fix these mistakes, scientists are working on something called quantum error correction. And that's what this breakthrough is talking about. So how it helps, it fixes mistakes. Just like how you might erase a mistake in your homework, quantum error correction helps fix errors in qubits. This is important because if these errors aren't fixed, the computer won't work properly. Then there's better performance. With quantum error correction, quantum computers can do things faster and better than regular computers. This means they can solve really hard problems that regular computers struggle with. Well, that is also quantum computing in general, but as you extrapolate that out to AI, you can see how this would have direct impacts in AI and computing. Hybrid techniques. Researchers at the Korea Institute of Science and Technology, KIST for short, have created a new way of combining 2 methods of error correction called discrete variable, known as DV, and continuous variable, CV. This hybrid method makes it easier and more efficient to correct errors in quantum computers. And lastly, more powerful computers. By using this new technique, quantum computers can handle more information without making as many mistakes. This could lead to the development of much larger and more powerful quantum computers in the future. So there you go. There's our, thank goodness Perplexity was there. Thank you, Cisco, for bringing up that topic, which is very cool because it's quite literally was put out today. I pulled this from eurekaalert.org, although I did see other news articles on Google. This was just the first one I clicked on, but it looks like there's quite a bit of information in there. And you probably can get to the journal as well, the full article from their research paper if you would like to nerd out and dive in more to that. So very, very cool stuff in the world of quantum computing.
Yeah, that's exciting. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The future is now. Science fiction is no longer fiction. We got robots on our way. We got nanobots. We got AI. We got quantum computers. NASA just launched their probe to Europa to see if there's liquid water and life. It's like 2010, the book.
That sounds like great episodes for the sci-fi AI show, everybody.
We got robots that walk around by remote control and have humans talk through the speakers. It's an amazing time, guys.
That's amazing time, everybody.
More dropping soon.
Okay, so I wanted to rapid fire through a few short stories myself. Since we're on the theme of AI and science, let's go with the 3 that popped out to me. This week, there was a computer simulation created, much like we were talking about spatial intelligence the other day. computer simulation of how our brains develop and grow neurons. So the main takeaway from this is, and that's from the University of Surrey. Uh, the main the main takeaway of this is because it's a full simulation of how the neurons get developed, that gives us insight into research we could do for neurodegenerative diseases and things like that, and show us how we might be able to actually regenerate brain tissue, which has been one of those holy grail of neuroscience. So huge thing. This is already an application of what we were talking about yesterday about if we had a full world simulation or a simulation of something, we could have huge jumps in development. So that was from the University of Surrey. The other couple I have is King's College in London. They have a new breakthrough that helps free up space for robots to think. So essentially what this does is they've developed essentially a circuit that runs off of valve pressure as opposed to electricity. So if for some reason you can't run an electrical circuit, such as you're in an irradiated area, and they gave the example of Chernobyl, that's going to destroy any electronic circuit you have. But if you have some base instructions that could be read digitally, zeros and ones through valve pressure, then you don't need electricity to do that. So there's some interesting applications for that. Again,
so you mean a fluid dynamics processor? Is that
correct?
Okay.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, and all of this stuff seems to be more about how, or all these science research seems to be focused on how can we simulate or replicate certain functions or systems that we've seen in life, in humans, in animals, and things like that, to improve this sector of science. And then finally, the last science story I have is researchers develop a system that's cat's eye inspired for vision for autonomous robotics. So a cat's eye is really good at the way it's designed is that the pupil can expand a lot, allowing them for low light vision, right? And then there's a special layer to the eye, to their eye, which allows them better vision at night and things like that. So inspired by that, scientists have recreated that for robotic vision, so that they can function in those low light environments. So I thought those three were really exciting. That all came out in this last week, and check out the Science Daily for more AI and science news. Okay,
So we have robot dogs, right?
robot dogs, yes.
Now we're gonna have robot cats.
Robot cats.
We have drones and some like robot birds. Those are things.
Yep.
Robot dolphins. Like, what's the next? What's the next animal inspired?
Well, we've already developed walkers, so we can have multi-legged walkers, and we've seen robots do backflips and things like that. So agility, right? We've already talked about all the different sensors. So we have sensors for vision, hearing, smell. Now, I'm waiting for taste. I don't know if that one came out, and they've got it for touch. So I mean, they've hit all of those markers. We'll see what happens. I think robotics is going to, or embodied AI is going to be a very interesting space over the next few years.
Yeah,
My question for that is, what is the most, I guess, efficient? I don't know what the word would be. Thing that can move around. Like when you see in movies, there's always, you either circle, you either roll.
Oh, right.
What is the most efficient movement that something
Yeah.
can get around? Because I'm not sure building humanoid type robots is the most efficient thing to get around.
Mhm.
Like,
I think it really depends on the terrain, and you might see multiple modes, right? If you're looking for speed, it's probably going to be some sort of wheel or
yeah,
ball, right? But that's not going to be every terrain.
no,
Walkers, not particularly fast, but they
no,
can climb over and up anything,
yeah,
right? Even articulated bodies like snakes and things like that, they
yeah,
have their own locomotion, but they're also, their body design allows them to get into places. Flying, whether it be wing or propeller,
yeah,
allows better, better distance coverage,
yeah.
and height, and overview and things like that.
All right.
Oh,
Oh.
and is that a robot puppy?
Mm.
No, it's
Well, here's
Thumper.
yes, but
Thumper.
it was not meant to interrupt you. I apologize. I'm still learning this. Even after Jimmy gave me directions last night on how to do this, I was expecting it to be like StreamYard, where I pulled it into like the pre-show. I did not realize that I could not preload it in and not make it show up on the screen. But since we're talking about puppies, do you mind if I bring this up?
Yeah,
Sorry.
bring it up. Go.
Jeez, man, I'm still learning new systems and all that. No, I did want to just bring this up because we were talking about animals, and this is one that's been around for quite some time. Tombot, and you can see here on the screen, it's kind of cut off at the top here. Oh, here, if we hit accept, there you go. I just got an email. Somehow I ended up on their newsletter, and they were basically like, "Hey, basically answer this Google form. Would you be willing to spend or pay outright for this?" Right? They wanted to know. I don't want. I'm going to get the price wrong. I'm going to say 1,500 or something like that. Something like that. They are obviously, you can see it here. They're actually going towards the um, uh, nursing home, supportive care. This dog is not going to get up and run around and play fetch with you. That's not what it does. It's essentially supposed to act like a lap dog. It has, actually, you can't really see it as much here, but it's got a ton of sensors in it that allow it to react or move towards your hand if you're petting it behind the ear, or it has breathing sounds to it and heartbeats and things like that. It's quite literally meant to be it's a robotic support animal, to help people with loneliness and all sorts of things, as you can imagine, would be helpful. I think I subscribe because I always imagine this would be something that actually would be super helpful to my daughter.
Okay, question on this one, because I
Yeah.
brought this topic up way back. If I punted this thing, what will everybody feel? Because it's not real. Remember the conversation we had about that? I remember in Paris there was the robot kind of looking dog, but it doesn't have a head. So the owner kept kicking it to make sure it caught back up. So now remember what we talked about, where it's like, oh, if you start making it kind of look human, okay, now this is a puppy looking thing, still a robot. If someone
Okay.
punted this, how would you feel about it? And like, what would be the reaction to that? Because it's still a robot.
I'd say what a foolish waste of money and investment that you just damaged as a result of punting that thing. It's not completely unfragile, right?
It is, yeah, and I'm gonna say, you're a bad man, Carl.
I wanted to bring it up.
Because what I'm taking from that is that you wish you could punt things that look like that, and now you've found your opportunity, which, sorry, you're a bad man. No.
Let's
bad
raise some
experience,
money and get
Carl.
a Tombot for Carl so he can kick it and see what happens.
No.
Listen.
I seriously, I'm out that day. See ya. Like,
Yeah.
no.
No. Sorry.
Jen says, "I would judge you." I was like, I just literally wanted to comment to see what Jen's answer was going to be. And by the way, I
Thank you,
appreciate this,
Jen.
Carl, because what you do bring this up, and I appreciate it because I don't actually take it as Carl saying he wants to beat up on robots or whatever. It's more of a philosophical question of, at what point maybe the Tom robot it doesn't look real to me. It looks like a stuffed dog that wags its tail, right? So that aside, but at some point, this Tom robot will be meanly, maybe indistinguishable for a real dog. And I do love that bigger question, Carl. So I appreciate it. I won't take it personally. I don't think you want to punt dogs. But I do see, like, it's a good question, which is, at what point is it like societally, that's not a word, societal,
That is.
it's not okay
Word.
in society. Where like there's a tipping point, right, Carl? To
Yes.
people are like, dude, it's
literally what I meant.
just a robot, to being canceled. Quite literally being canceled. If you
Yeah.
saw a celebrity go down a street, and yesterday it's kicking over a bike and tomorrow it's kicking over one of these dogs that got in its way, and the world reacts to that
Yeah.
person and goes, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like that I agree with you, that will eventually happen. It's
Right.
interesting where the tipping point is.
It's clearly a red flag about that person and their level of self-regulation.
I guess.
And that's the thing that I'm curious about is you let's say you switch what it looks like to Jimmy. We just talked about like this tank looking thing that kind of
R2D2.
like, right, that needs to go cross a mountain, and you try to kick that and no one's gonna blink an eye because it's like it's robust, it's made to have that thing. But then you kind of put it's like literally the same concept, but it's a now in the form of something that's real. There's a threshold that crosses, but one would argue it's literally the same purpose because it's not alive. It is a robot. So that it's a very I'm always curious about that because like I mentioned, there was a lady that knelt down beside me and started going like tried to get this dog to do things, and I was like, but it's a robot. It's not going to do exactly like you tried to pet it, which I was like, it's just weird to me out.
That's
But
brain biology, right?
It's
I mean,
weird.
like, we have evolved to have reactions to things that have faces and that kind of stuff. But to your point, Carl, I will join you when the robot looks like a roach. Right?
Right.
Like, I mean, you can.
Well, that's the thing.
That's what kind
You
of
can
Jen
make
is
some
saying
bug
too.
robots, and yes, there we go. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was just about to say that. I don't want to, Jimmy, I know you want to get back to news. Actually, I have a few more news stories too, because this is a great topic. And I mean, God knows that the YouTube title should be something like, is it okay to kick a cute robotic dog? I mean, it needs to be something like that because it'll probably be the most highly divisive.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. Because then we talk about spiders, then we talk about bears. We talk about, let's make it every single type of animal.
Yeah.
What would be okay to crush and Beth just said, if it's a big cockroach, no problems with it.
Yeah.
But if it's a big spider, I'd have no problems with it. But what happens if it's
and we all bring our own emotional baggage to the conversation. I don't think I've ever said this on the show, but I have a Cabbage Patch doll that I got that was really important to me when I was little, like 6 or 7. It's on my daughter's bed right now. Right? I mean, it's Malvin. I won't get into it. Malvin's very cool. Like, Malvin is a stuffed Cabbage Patch doll, but I have a deep emotional attachment because of what it meant to me as a child and what it continued to mean to my daughter as far as feeling safe in bed and things like that. It doesn't have to wag, move, talk, speak, or breathe for it to have a deep emotional attachment. So make that a robotic. And me personally, I'm going to react to that differently, right, Carl? As opposed to, if Beth is a dog person, but somebody else is a cat person. I'm not really an animal person, but I'll be damned if you're going to kick something that looks like a red panda. They're cute as hell. You're not going to kick a red panda. I don't care how animatronic cat red pandas or sea otters for that matter. All right.
Well, that's there it is, Carl. For that show, come up with the Carl cuteness scale, and that's where it's going to lie. It's like, how cute is it? Okay, you're getting on the edge there, people.
Yeah. Or horses for Andy, right? I mean, like, we could go on and on and on. People have, like, Andy's going to have a different approach if it's horses because it's part of his livelihood and stuff. Yeah. So, okay, Jimmy, can I share one or two on my other story?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I didn't want to derail there. Okay, I have a few here really quick. One, I think it's pronounced Fall, FAL.ai. I don't think it's FAL because it's lowercase, but I always get these wrong. So Fall. But anyway, you might recognize that name. That was one of the companies that came out that you could immediately access like Flux 1 and then eventually 1.1 on. But actually, you can access all sorts of models: text to text, video to video, interpolation or turpulation, where they're putting like stuff in between the scenes. I hadn't really paid a lot of attention other than signing up quite literally to get some free access to Flux. That's how I found out about them. But they just raised a whole bunch more money, backed by the founder of Perplexity, Andreessen Horowitz, Hugging Face's CTO. They got some big names in here as far as angel investors. So what do they do? It says by choosing fall, we're going to assume that's right. Enterprises, crucial there, enterprises, so we can tell where their focus is, are not just adopting a new technology, they're partnering with a leader in AI-generated media revolution, positioning themselves at the forefront of this transformative trend in their respective industries. Our commitment to pushing boundaries of AI-generated media has attracted a rapidly growing user base that includes the leaders consuming AI companies like Perplexity, PhotoRoom, FreePic, research labs like PlayHT, and major enterprises. And the last part here, we still have a long way to go. But today we want to highlight a few milestones. Fall has reached 500,000 developers on the platform, generating 50 million images, videos, or audio streams a day. They have 10x revenue growth year over year, and they say that they are the fastest Whisper, Flux, and Stable Diffusion endpoints, according to, and it's a link, independent benchmarks. So one of those companies that, maybe we hadn't really talked about a lot other than like, because it gave us access to something else. But Fall, FAL.ai is a good one. And they just, their Series A, by the way, was 23 million. Like a drop in the bucket comparatively. Now, talking about raising money, the ex-OpenAI CTO, Mira Murati, who had just left along with some other people from OpenAI, and immediately we heard about, like, everybody was, clamoring for her to whatever the next thing was that she was going to do, because she was also the CEO for about 24 hours, like a year ago. So she's a huge player. Very, very smart. Obviously, we've listened to different interviews from her and stuff like that. She has not said what she's doing, but what it says is ex-OpenAI CTO Mira Murati raises VC funds recruiting OpenAI employees. So the speculation is that, well, if she's openly going to OpenAI employees, current OpenAI employees, that perhaps she's trying to do something in this space. People's responses were from this Bindu Reedy. I don't know who that is, but she said, the more the merrier. Soon we'll have over 10x, not 10x, but 10EX OpenAI startups competing with OpenAI, with some laughing emojis. This speaks to how big the market is going to be. So this isn't any, like, how many companies have come out of people leaving Google or have worked at Google or Facebook, and then, this is pretty common. And we talked about this as well. Like there's some value as far as getting jobs and stuff, to say like maybe you're like the 7th or 10th or 30th employee at OpenAI or whatever. And so it's not that uncommon, but it'll be really interesting to see what she comes out with and what her focus is going to be. Like, what is the thing that lights her up, and where does she specifically want to go, and how much does that differ from OpenAI? And then I had one more story. Could do one more, Jimmy, real quick. Just interesting. It's from MTech Labs. And the only thing interesting about this, because the first thing I saw was it was glasses. I won't bother bringing it up on screen, but it looks like AI glasses, sort of like your Meta. The difference, though, what these glasses are meant to do is actually more or less look back at your face. It's not so much about looking out, although they do have forward-facing cameras, to two areas, mental health and eating. So I guess the idea of it is you wear these glasses and it monitors your facial expressions and your mood and how you're chewing and eating. Some of this, I think, could easily be done with a camera just facing you. I mean, the same camera that's facing me right now probably could do the same thing and track my mood. I mean, we don't see that. So I'm not quite sure why you would need to put on glasses, but I just felt it was interesting to bring up, because immediately I was like, oh, another company. This again, I'm sorry, the name of it is MTech, EMTEQ Labs, unveils emotion tracking smart glasses that peer inside your mind. So just an interesting take, because we haven't seen too many glasses faced like with the purpose of facing the other way, unless it's is it AI? Is it Apple's or Meta's that looks back at you in your eye movement?
Apples. Apple
Right.
Vision, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool stuff.
I imagine I find that story super interesting because, the space that they mentioned, I think it's a good choice to do glasses as opposed to just having a camera set up or having your phone set up or anything like that, is, people will be far less self-conscious. Like, I've worn glasses nearly my entire life, and I don't even bat an eye.
Mm.
I have, it's not a concern. It's in the back of my head or whatnot. And so if I need to know that kind of information or I need some sort of analysis of that, just putting it into my glasses that I wear every day is going to be far less of a mental lift
Mm.
than going, "Oh, I need to have breakfast now. Let me set up my phone and
Get
record
a
me
face paint.
while I'm
Yeah, yeah,
eating my breakfast." Yeah,
yeah.
that would bug me. But yeah, just simply having it in my glasses, and on anytime kind of situation sounds
I would think for
sounds
like fatigue,
appealing.
they're not talking about this, but fatigued workers, fatigued drivers, our semi drivers,
Right, when
and
you hit a certain
getting
threshold, the warning comes up.
probably,
Absolutely.
yeah, because probably it's some sort of early detection of facial features that are maybe not easily perceived by humans. I mean, we're very good. Like so much of communication is what we see, right? And just the slightest variances in somebody's face, the greatest actors and actresses can seemingly move one muscle in their face and portray a whole different experience. But it'd be interesting to see if the AI tech gets to a point, or there's glasses like this where you have your semi drivers and it's a very early warning detection system where it's saying, hey, based on these muscles here drooping a little bit more, you are getting tired and more distracted. It's time for a break or whatever. That would be super cool. That's not what they're saying they're doing, by the way, but just it kind of made me just think of what you were just saying, Jimmy, about
Well, to elaborate on that $1 million idea, I think the glasses would be able to detect things like time that blink stays closed, blink
yeah,
rate, the focus of the iris, it's getting a little wobbly and interpolating between left and right. I think you just look at the eyes alone and determine whether a person's alert or not.
Mhm, mhm. Okay.
Before we close out, I just want to mention, since we had so much fun with that other conversation, we don't have time to talk about these things, but I'm just going to mention that Apple has put out a new benchmark, GSM Symbolic.
Right.
Apple's a major developer of AI, and they tested the reasoning abilities of all the major models, and they came to the conclusion that their behavior is better explained by sophisticated pattern matching. There's no reasoning involved. And they did this by a negative test. Something small like changing a name in the process degraded their performance. And then on the positive side, Meta introduces a whole new model of prepending instructions to an LLM called thought preference optimization, which dramatically increased the effectiveness of the think this through process that is related to human reasoning. Okay, just that's the
No,
really short the TLDR.
it's good stuff. I definitely want to dive into it a little more. Beth or Carl, do you have any pressing stories that you really want to get to? No? All right. I will finish it up with two really quick ones, and then we've got to go. Number one, Adobe, beyond the Firefly, they also added sound generation. So you can make your own sound. Great video out there, by the way. You can make your own sounds. They'll use it as a basis for generations, and you'll be able to add them to your soundtrack. Also, Adobe, for creatives, is paying up to $3 a minute or $3 an hour for, no, $3 per minute to submit, for creatives to submit their video for generative AI training. So I want to know about that a little more. That sounds interesting. And that's definitely the first time I've seen a company go, hey, we will pay you for your stuff. So that's a new approach. And then finally, I know we didn't really cover this right now, and maybe we'll do a show about it later, is Anthropic came out with their responsible scaling policy, which is a huge, big jump in creating, or what they're trying to do is create more responsible AI, more in the governance side of things and the ethics side of things, but creating it as such as a framework, a portable framework, so that everybody else can build off of it as well.
And
All right. Oh.
No, I'm going to comment on that because I'm sure we'll do a show on it. Dario Amodei wrote a very long, very interesting essay about his optimism, right? Basically, about what will be coming, and he is anthropic, right? Like those things are related in my mind.
Awesome. Yes, let's make sure that we do a show. All right. So tomorrow we're going to dive into OpenAI's real-time API and all of what that might mean for you in your business applications. And of course, we've got our biweekly roundup on Friday. Next week or the next week after that, we'll probably see the Carl Cuteness scale with "Would You Kick a Robot?" and a slightly more serious, but definitely happening, is the Anthropic Responsible Scaling Policy. So stay tuned. Join us for the rest of the week. Until then, goodbye.